Hi, my name is Jennifer Poole, and I'm the author of The Enchanted People, and I can't wait to share with you more about the book and the writing process. It's a children's graphic novel about a girl who's born in a village where everyone has a secret power, and it's a really special power. Some people can move mountains or pick up trees or swim for a really long period of time underwater. And she's born into a big family. She's the youngest, and she doesn't have a power. It doesn't seem like she has anything special about her. So she is outcast by her family, and that obviously makes her really upset and sad. And while she's all alone, she finds a baby bird that's fallen from the rafters of a horse shelter, and she takes care of this baby bird all on her own. And as the bird grows, she realizes that she needs to teach the bird how to fly. So the book is about her adventure traveling all around the world with various animals, helping her teach her baby bird how to fly. And the book has a strong message on acceptance and bullying and being different, and finding what makes you unique and owning your own power, which everybody's born with a special power. It's just sometimes it takes others longer to figure that out and find that out about themselves, but everyone is unique and special. And at the end of the book, she realizes that her power is being able to talk and listen to animals and be a representative of Mother Earth. So she's able to eventually go back to her people and tell them that they need to make sure they're using their powers for good, otherwise the earth will be destroyed, animal habitats will be destroyed, and that's a direct reflection of our own well-being of all of humankind. So there's a strong message in there about environmentalism and conservation and just being in harmony with nature as much as possible. I wrote this book because I grew up with animals. I grew up on a horse farm in Michigan originally, but now my husband and I and our two kids live in St. Williams, Ontario, and we have a small hobby farm there with horses and chickens and a bunny and dogs and cats and just lots of animals. So we love being around animals and we love living on a farm. We've been really involved with the Simcoe Public Library, bringing our kids in for special events and just really seeing how children's books sort of shape their ideas and inspire them for when they do get back out in nature around the farm. They recognize various things from things we've read in books, or they know how to play and imagine outside because they've read a storybook about a really exciting character or adventure. So that's been really fun for us to see evolve and to also foster and make sure they're really connected with their local library and getting to be exposed to so many different kinds of books and stories and authors. And so that's sort of what I wanted to do with this book, is make sure that it was really vibrant. The illustrations are really colorful, but I also wanted the story to be colorful in context in terms of the main character getting to travel all over the world, see all of these different types of environments and habitats and animals, and also how society interacts with the environment and the animals and how it all combines with each other, and just give kids a lot of inspiration, ideas of what they can see and do, and just an idea of what's out there waiting for them when they grow up and can travel and explore and find their own way themselves. It would be a book that would be enjoyable for kids as little as 3 or 4 that can appreciate the pictures. I think it's a reading level, probably from 2nd or 3rd grade reading level, but I think it's a story up through middle school that middle schoolers would enjoy, and hopefully parents and animal lovers of all ages will enjoy it too. And to talk a little bit about the publishing process. So The Enchanted People is actually published by a Canadian publisher called Guernica Editions, and they focus on Canadian authors and illustrators, but they also have a catalog of international authors. And I submitted my original manuscript about 2.5 years ago, and then they accepted it. I also sent my manuscript off to several other publishers, like internationally, and I had a no from every single one of them, and some I didn't even hear back from. But I always tell other people interested in getting published that it only takes one yes. You just need one yes. And when you get no's, it's not necessarily because you have a bad manuscript. It's just publishers have different agendas each publishing year of what they want their books to represent or focus on. And my book just happened to fit well within what this publisher was looking for at the time. And my manuscript was actually quite different than what it turned into be, and that's kind of neat about working with a publisher is if you get along together and want to collaborate, they will help you make your story the best that it can be. And I never once felt like I was selling out or having to make changes that would make more copies sell as opposed to what I really wanted to say. It never felt like that. They really taught me a lot and were very patient when I was hesitant or really stubborn about particular changes, and they sort of let me stumble and figure that out on my own and come to terms with it myself. I always had the final decision, and I'm really grateful for their patience, because I think as a writer or any artist, you have a really specific vision of what you're trying to create and say and put out into the world. And sometimes you don't necessarily realize that it's just not quite getting across the way you've expressed yourself, and it needs some tweaking. Sometimes there's even more being represented that you've created that you don't even realize has come across. Like, there's a lot of subconscious that is probably just part of who you are without thinking about it, but it comes with such a deeper and richer message to the rest of the world. But you need a little help in clarifying that or bringing that out so that the project can even be better than how you imagined it. And that's how I feel about this book. This is definitely better than I imagined, and that's a huge thanks to Guernica Editions. The book went through a couple of revisions. We had a couple of holdups on my end because I worked with an amazing illustrator from California, but making changes, because there were some changes to the text, there had to be some changes to the illustrations, and that just takes time. It takes time for artists to work. So the process for me was about 2.5 years, but they were really patient. They gave me a really fair contract. I didn't have to pay anything to get this published. Not that there's anything wrong with paying something up front, like self-publishing or a hybrid publishing deal. There's nothing wrong with those things, and for certain types of books or authors, that's actually the better route to go. But this is what worked out really well for me and my book, and I got to have a say in the size of the book. I got to work with the book designer as to how the cover would be, and he came up with the idea to divide it into chapters, which I never even thought of for a children's book, but it makes a lot of sense, I think, because they really read it and understood it and wanted to make sure that the rest of the world did too. So I had a great experience with publishing, and I think that sometimes it sounds a little scary, or there's a lot of publishing scams out there where they want you to send all of this money up front and then don't actually market your book. You just essentially get one copy of your book and you've spent thousands of dollars and you have to buy your own copies and send it out and market it. But if you do your research online, and it's really easy to do, if you just go on Google and research publishers based on what you're interested in writing about, if it's poetry or children's book or nonfiction, just look for publishers that publish that kind of work or genre, and then look at their guidelines. What are their submission guidelines? So do they only take submissions during a certain period of time, like maybe from January through March? Do they want it in a Word document? Do they want it sent out as a hard copy? Do they want it in email? Do they want it as a particular type of file? Do they want sample illustrations? Do they want the whole book? Do they want just a small sample? Every publisher has a different submission process, but it's worth just putting the time and effort into it. Make a nice cover letter. It doesn't have to be anything, it doesn't need to be something that you need to pay for to get written for you. Just write from your heart like you've written your book. Be honest, be open, and send it out to as many publishers as you want. And the hardest part is just being patient and waiting for responses, some of which never come. But if you're patient, you will eventually get a yes, and that's all that it takes. So my advice for writers, young and old, is you can get published, and somebody will want your work, and your work does matter. The tricky part is just finding the right niche for it and the right publisher, and that takes a little bit of research. But if you do it online, like through Google or even at your local library, and ask somebody to help you do it, you'll find a way. So don't give up, and go in optimistic, and it'll pay off in the end, and you'll have a published book too. Okay, I am reading chapter 7 called Spider from my book. After 2 days of travel, they found Spider spinning an intricate silk web between 2 banana trees. Her body was covered in tiny tufts of brown fur, and her 8 legs danced gracefully across the silk fibers of her web. Spider was happy to meet new friends, and she looked up at them cheerfully with her 8 glistening eyes. She especially enjoyed the company of Horse, who told her of the spiders near his grazing lands, and how they keep the biting insects away in summer. However, the friends were disappointed to learn that Spider could not fly. She merely floated in the air using the support of a silk strand of nearly invisible web attached to her abdomen. Neither Wawatay nor baby bird could spin web for themselves, so floating was quite impossible. Spider was very generous and offered a strand of her own silk web to each friend, but each friend was far heavier than Spider, and so floating did not work for them. They still had a nice visit. The region of spiders with webs and banana trees is a vast and mysterious rainforest, perhaps the greatest and greenest on Earth. Today, you might know it as the Amazon. Before the friends said goodbye, Spider suggested that they inquire about flying with flying fish, provided that Horse did not mind going for a swim. Of course, Horse did not. So I'm really excited and honored to be Author of the Month for April, and I can't wait to come into the library and run 2 different programs. The first program will be for kids, I would say ages 5 to 10, and their families, and we'll do a reading of the book. And kids can ask questions about publishing or the characters or whatever they're interested in. And we'll also have a book signing if you want to purchase copies and get them signed, or get pictures with the book and the author. And I'm hoping we will also have a special character from the book come visit and also be available for pictures and some really neat activities. So stay tuned for more information about that. And then the second program I'll be offering is for older kids, so middle school through high school age. And we will talk more about the publishing process, how I had the inspiration and ideas for writing this book, what the writing process was like. I'll talk to the kids about how they can pull in inspiration and experiences from their own lives and write their own works of writing, depending on what type of writing they're interested in, poetry, fiction, nonfiction. I'll talk to them about how they would begin putting something like that together for themselves based on their own lives and interests. And then I'll talk to them about how they can get published at the ages they are at right now with what they already have completed or about to complete, how they can get published as young authors, because I think especially young people have such a gift for thinking about the world. They have so much optimism for what's in the future. They're getting ready to spread their wings and fly, and the world is at their fingertips, or should be at their fingertips. And I think if older generations had a chance to hear what they have to say and what their hopes and dreams are for the future, how they imagine and dream and think of the world, I think that would help a lot of people and a lot of issues make sure we have a good world that is ready for them to take over and has a good outcome for their children and their grandchildren. So I don't think there's enough authors that are young. So I love trying to fill that void and teach young people how to get their literature and writing out into the world. So we'll talk about that. They can ask questions. I'll try to give them ideas of different publishers or ways that they can tangibly get their writing out into the world. And yeah, I hope it'll be enriching for them and give them the tools they need to become published young writers. Thank you so much for having me and for your interest in my book. You can purchase copies of The Enchanted People online through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters, Guernica Editions directly, which is my publisher, or you can also take copies out through the Norfolk County Library. Thank you.